An entitled kid raised his middle finger to mock a royal guard, thinking he was just another game character to grief. But one iron grip made him learn that some buttons can't be reset. Here's how it went down. But before we continue, let us know in the comments below where you're watching from. Subscribe to the channel, as tomorrow at the same time we bring you another remarkable display of Royal Guard valour that you won't want to miss. The afternoon sun beat down on the grounds of Buckingham Palace as 12-year-old Tyler Anderson waddled through the gathering crowds, one hand clutching an oversized McDonald's cup, the other swiping furiously at his latest mobile game. His designer sneakers, pristine despite their owner's bulk, scuffed against the historic stones as he moved with the entitled confidence of a child who had never heard the word no. "Mom," he whined, his voice carrying the distinct nasal tone of someone who spent more time trash-talking in gaming chat rooms than engaging in real conversation. "This is so boring. Can't we just, buy the palace or something?" He paused to slurp noisily from his cup, drawing disapproving glances from nearby tourists. Sarah Anderson, clutching her designer handbag, tried to guide her son away from a group of elderly visitors he'd nearly bowled over. "Honey, please watch where you're going. This is a historic..." "Historic?" Tyler scoffed, his double chin wobbling as he jerked away from her touch. "More like prehistoric. Back home, I've got better graphics in my gaming setup." His oversized gaming hoodie, despite the summer heat, bore telltale signs of earlier McDonald's visits. A young British girl nearby whispered something to her mother about manners, causing Tyler's face to flush red with defensive anger. "What are you looking at?" he snapped, his voice cracking. "Bet you don't even have a gaming PC." His mother's attempts to shush him were drowned out by another noisy slurp, as Tyler's eyes fixed on something ahead, a royal guard standing at attention, his scarlet uniform pristine, his bearing perfect. The guard's composure seemed to offend Tyler on a personal level, like a challenge to his self-appointed role as the center of the universe. "Oh man," Tyler smirked, shoving his empty cup into his mother's hands. "This is going to be epic." His eyes took on the same gleam they got when trolling younger players online, a mix of malice and misplaced superiority that had never faced real consequences. "Tyler, don't you dare!" His mother started, but he was already moving forward, his gamer headphones hanging around his neck like a trophy. Each heavy step carried the weight of countless hours spent in gaming chairs, fueled by energy drinks and a diet that nutritionists would consider a cry for help. The guard remained motionless, but there was something in his bearing, a subtle tension visible only to those who understood discipline, that suggested awareness of the approaching storm. Tyler's fingers, sticky from French fries, flexed with anticipation as he prepared to unleash what he considered his elite-tier trolling skills on this new target. "Hey guys!" he announced to no one in particular, his voice carrying that particular whine that made adults wince. "Watch this! I'm about to do what's called a pro-gamer move." His mother's protests faded into the background as Tyler planted himself squarely in front of the guard, a smirk spreading across his face like an oil slick. "Yo, what's with the hat, bro?" Tyler's voice carried the same mocking tone he used in gaming lobbies. "Looking kinda sus, not gonna lie." He circled the guard like a predator, though his waddling gait somewhat undermined the intended effect. "Bet you can't even do Fortnite dances in that outfit." The guard remained motionless, eyes fixed forward, each polished button reflecting Tyler's increasingly agitated expression. This lack of reaction seemed to irritate the boy more than any response could have. "Mom!" he called out, his voice rising with the whiny demand of someone used to instant gratification. "Take a picture of me dabbing on this noob." His mother lowered her phone, shaking her head in embarrassment. But Tyler was already striking poses, each more exaggerated than the last. "What's wrong, my guy?" Tyler taunted, adopting the affected accent of his favourite streamers. Can't handle these epic gamer moves? He attempted what he thought was a floss dance, his bulk making the movements look more like a struggling windmill. Bet you're just a default skin IRL. A group of tourists had stopped to watch, their expressions ranging from disgust to pity. A British father quietly led his children away, using the moment as a whispered lesson in how not to behave. But Tyler, wrapped in his bubble of entitlement, interpreted their attention as the same kind of audience he craved in his gaming streams. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his voice cracking with pubescent enthusiasm, "welcome to my real-life trolling stream." He pulled out his phone, attempting to frame himself with the guard. "Don't forget to like and subscribe." The device slipped from his greasy fingers, clattering against the courtyard stones. The guard's discipline never wavered, though someone observant might have noticed the slightest tightening around his eyes. Each of Tyler's movements left French fry-scented clouds in his wake, the afternoon heat making the air around him almost visible. "Bruh, you could at least help me pick it up," Tyler complained, bending awkwardly to retrieve his phone. "That's kind of toxic behavior, NGL." His fingers left smudges on the screen as he checked for damage. Probably just jealous of my setup back home. Got more RGB than this whole palace. An elderly woman in a Royal British Legion pin stepped forward, her voice sharp with disapproval. "Young man, that uniform deserves respect." "Okay, boomer," Tyler cut her off with what he considered elite-tier humour. "Bet you don't even know what POG means." He turned back to the guard, emboldened by his own perceived wit. This guy's probably never even seen a victory royale. His mother's attempts to intervene were met with the same dismissal he gave to loading screens, a quick tap to skip past the unnecessary dialogue. Tyler's attention was fully fixed on his target now, his game-trained mind unable to process that this wasn't another online match. He could simply quit when bored. "Look at him just standing there," Tyler continued, his voice taking on the same tone he used when trash-talking opponents. "Probably got worse ping than my granddad." He moved closer, invading the sacred space between tourist and guard that tradition and respect usually maintained. The guard's shadow fell across Tyler's face, but even this natural advantage in height seemed to irritate the boy. His breathing had grown heavier, each word carrying the laboured sound of someone whose physical activities were largely limited to thumb movements. "What's your KD ratio, bro?" Tyler's taunts grew louder, demanding the attention he felt entitled to. "Bet you're hard-stuck bronze." Each gaming reference fell flat against the guard's impeccable bearing, like paper airplanes against a fortress wall. The afternoon sun had reached that angle where it caught every brass button, every medal, every inch of the uniform that represented centuries of service and sacrifice. To those who understood its significance, the guard's stillness radiated power. But to Tyler, locked in his world of pixels and instant gratification, it was just another NPC to be trolled. "This is literally worse than lag," he declared, his face reddening with frustrated entitlement. "At least my PC responds when I click on it." His fingers, still bearing traces of fast food salt, flexed with growing agitation. The guard's continued silence was having an effect Tyler had never experienced in his online world, the absolute impossibility of provoking a reaction through his usual tactics. Unknown to Tyler, he was about to learn that unlike his video games, this interaction wouldn't come with a respawn option. "Hey, Minecraft villager!" Tyler's voice took on a more aggressive edge, desperately reaching for references he thought would land. "How many emeralds to make you move, He pulled out another McDonald's burger from his pocket, unwrapping it with deliberate slowness. "Bet you're just mad because you can't eat on the job. Imagine being this much of a bot." The smell of processed cheese and day-old beef wafted through the air as Tyler took an exaggerated bite, deliberately letting crumbs fall near the guard's polished boots. He taunted through a mouthful of food. This is what freedom tastes like. American style, baby. A pair of young British soldiers in civilian clothes had stopped to watch, their posture tensing with each new insult. They recognized something Tyler couldn't: the subtle signs of controlled power in the guard's stance, the kind of discipline that came from real military service rather than tutorial levels. "Yo, what's your username?" Tyler continued, wiping his mouth on his sleeve. "Oh, wait, you probably don't even game. Too busy standing here like an AFK player." He attempted another dance move, nearly losing his balance. Imagine choosing to be an NPC in real life. That's kind of cringe, bro. The guard's eyes remained fixed forward, but there was a change in the air around him, like the atmosphere before a thunderstorm. His knuckles had whitened slightly on his rifle, the only visible sign of the iron control he was maintaining. "Hey, chat!" Tyler announced to his imaginary audience. "Watch this epic trolling." He pulled out his phone again, making exaggerated faces while trying to take selfies. Day 69 of trying to make this default skin rage quit. Content, am I right? His mother had retreated to a nearby bench, her face buried in her hands. A group of Japanese tourists hurried past, their guide quietly explaining in hushed tones about the significance of the guard's position, a significance entirely lost on Tyler. "Bruh, this is boring," Tyler complained, his voice getting louder with each word. "Even tutorial bots have better AI than this." He moved even closer, his bulk casting a shadow over the guard's polished buttons. "Probably running on Windows XP or something. Needs an update, FRF." The two young soldiers exchanged glances, years of training letting them recognize the subtle signs of building tension. The guard's breathing had changed, still perfectly controlled, but with the measured pace of someone counting down in their head. "No cap," Tyler continued, reaching into his pocket for more fries. "This is literally worse than camping in Fortnite." He flicked a fry toward the guard's boots. "At least, campers eventually have to move when the storm comes." The afternoon had grown warmer, but there was a chill in the immediate vicinity of the guard. His stillness had taken on a different quality, not the practiced pose of ceremony, but the coiled readiness of a warrior choosing not to strike. "Bet you're just mad because you can't afford a gaming chair," Tyler taunted, his voice carrying that particular whine that seemed to cut through all other sounds. "This uniform probably doesn't even have RGB. Major L, not gonna lie." Sweat began soaking through his gaming hoodie, his breath growing heavier from the unusual amount of physical movement. Still, like a player too invested in a losing game, he refused to acknowledge his deteriorating situation. "Tyler, honey," his mother attempted a gentler tactic, stepping forward. "Do you know these guards are actual soldiers? Many of them have served in Afghanistan." "Okay, boomer." Tyler shrugged her off, nearly losing balance in the process. "That's literally so last season. Probably couldn't even handle a battle royale. Bet he's got a KD ratio worse than my grandma." He attempted what he thought was an intimidating strut, though his heavy breathing somewhat undermined the effect. "What's your rank, bro? Iron? Wood League?" Tyler circled closer, each reference falling flat against the guard's dignity. "Bet you don't even have a Discord server, probably still using Facebook like some NPC." His fingers flew through a series of what he thought were cool gaming gestures, each one making nearby parents pull their children closer. A teenage girl nearby lowered her phone in disgust. "That's not cool, you know. My brother's in the military." "Ratio plus cringe," Tyler shot back, his gaming vocabulary failing to land in the real world. "No one asked. Plus you're a default skin." His voice cracked on the last word, drawing snickers from younger children in the crowd. "Mummy, why is that fat boy being so mean?" a young voice piped up from the crowd, clear and innocent. "Because some people never learned proper manners, darling," came the crisp reply, making Tyler's face flush deeper red beneath his already heat-strained features. He began mimicking what he thought was a British accent, each word more grating than the last. Oh, look at me. I'm a British guard, in it Bruve, standing here like it's some epic quest or something. His attempts at humour fell flat against the stone walls of the palace, echoing back to him as hollow as his understanding of respect. The guard's shadow had lengthened with the afternoon sun, stretching across the courtyard like a line being drawn. A line Tyler was rapidly approaching, without any awareness of the consequences that awaited on the other side. "This is literally giving me second-hand embarrassment," Tyler declared, his voice carrying the unearned confidence of someone who had never faced real consequences. "Imagine having to stand here all day like some sort of—" He paused, searching his limited vocabulary for what he considered the ultimate insult. Like some sort of touch-grass normie. The atmosphere had grown thick with tension, like the moment before a boss fight, though unlike Tyler's games, this wouldn't come with multiple attempts or an easy difficulty setting. The guard's discipline was a dam holding back, not weakness, but a flood of earned authority that Tyler, in his ignorance, was about to unleash. "Time for the grand finale, chat," Tyler announced, his voice carrying that particular mix of arrogance and ignorance. His stubby fingers, still glistening with burger grease, curled into position. "Watch me 360 no-scope this noob's whole career." Tyler Alexander Anderson. His mother's voice cut through the tension, using his full name as a final warning. "That is enough! We did not fly across the ocean for you to—" "Spawn camping!" Tyler interrupted, his voice cracking with what he thought was cleverness. "That's what this guy's doing. Just spawn camping the palace like a total noob." He fumbled in his pocket, pulling out another handful of cold fries. "Probably doesn't even know how to build in Fortnite." A group of American tourists moved away in embarrassment, one muttering, "This is why they hate us over here." But Tyler was too far gone in his performance to notice, his face red not just from heat, but from the escalating situation he'd created. "Yo, my guy," he continued, his voice rising to a whine that made even the pigeons scatter. "I bet your ping is so bad you can't even see me right now. Probably running on that British tea-powered internet, innit?" His attempt at British slang came out as mangled as his gaming references, drawing winces from the crowd. The guard remained motionless, but there was something different in his bearing now, a subtle shift that the two young soldiers watching nearby instantly recognized. It was the kind of tension they'd seen in combat veterans, the calm before decisive action. "Ratio plus L plus you fell off," Tyler declared, stepping even closer, his bulk now barely a foot from the guard's pristine uniform. The smell of processed food and stale sweat created an almost visible barrier between them. Tradition and discipline on one side, entitlement and disrespect on the other. Then, with the same deliberate slowness he used when selecting weapons in his games, Tyler raised his middle finger. Not just raised it, but thrust it directly toward the guard's face, close enough that his fingernail nearly brushed the older man's nose. "Get wrecked, Normie!" Tyler sneered, his finger hovering mere inches from the guard's face. "Screenshot this for your cringe compilation." Time seemed to slow. The afternoon sun caught the guard's brass buttons, throwing sharp reflections across Tyler's face. The two soldiers straightened, recognizing the microsecond pause that preceded military action. Even the pigeons seemed to sense the shift, taking wing from their perches on the ancient stones. "You mad, bro?" Tyler's voice carried that particular tone of someone who thought they were untouchable. "Gonna cry! The guard moved. It wasn't the ceremonial movement tourists came to photograph. This was combat-trained precision, honed through years of service and discipline. His white-gloved hand shot out like a striking cobra, fingers closing around Tyler's extended digit with calculated pressure. The change was instant. Gone was the ceremonial statue Tyler had been mocking. In its place stood a warrior whose eyes now locked onto the boy's face with the full weight of military authority. Those eyes had seen real combat, had faced real challenges, and now they focused their full intensity on the suddenly pale face of a child who had never faced genuine consequences. Perhaps the guard's voice cut through the air like a steel blade. Quiet, yet carrying immense power. It's time we discuss the real meaning of respect. Tyler's mouth opened and closed soundlessly, his game-trained reflexes useless against this new reality. He tried to pull his finger back, but the guard's grip was like iron, not hurting, but completely immovable. "You see, young man," the guard continued, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of tradition, "this isn't one of your games. There are no respawn points here, no reset buttons." His grip shifted slightly, causing Tyler to rise onto his tiptoes, just real actions and very real consequences. The crowd had gone completely silent. Even Tyler's mother stood frozen, her designer handbag forgotten at her feet. The two soldiers nodded in grim approval, recognizing the moment when discipline transformed into necessary action. But, Tyler stammered, his gaming bravado evaporating like morning mist. "You're not supposed to—" "Move?" the guard finished for him, his voice carrying an edge that could have cut steel. "React? Break character?" The pristine white glove tightened fractionally. "You've spent the last 15 minutes testing the limits of duty and respect. Congratulations, young man. You've found them." Tyler's face had lost all colour, his earlier redness replaced by a pallor that suggested he was finally understanding the difference between online trolling and real-world consequences. His finger, still held in that implacable grip, had become the centre of his universe, a singular point of contact between his virtual understanding of power and its very real manifestation. "First lesson." The guard's voice carried the kind of authority that made Tyler's gaming chair victories seem suddenly childish. "Respect isn't a game mechanic. It's not something you can toggle on and off like your chat filters." The grip on Tyler's finger remained precise, a soldier's control rather than a bully's force. "Every button on this uniform," the guard continued, "represents sacrifice you couldn't comprehend from behind your gaming screen. Men have died wearing these colours. Real death, young man. No respawns." Tyler's breathing had become shallow, his usual swagger replaced by genuine fear. His free hand hung limply at his side, gaming reflexes useless against this reality check. "You mock this post, this duty?" The guard's eyes hadn't left Tyler's face. "While you're practicing your epic gamer moves, soldiers wearing this uniform are serving in war zones. That funny hat you ridiculed? It's earned through training that would leave you crying for your gaming chair." A slight adjustment of the guard's grip made Tyler rise further on his toes. "Those default skin jokes? Let me tell you about default settings." The guard's voice took on an edge that cut through Tyler's remaining bravado. "The default setting of a soldier is discipline. The default setting of this uniform is honour. And the default response to disrespect." Tyler whimpered as the guard's grip shifted again, not hurting, but commanding absolute attention. "Is to correct it. Firmly." I was just..." Tyler's voice had lost all its earlier swagger, reduced to the sound of a child facing real consequences for the first time. "Just what?" The guard's question cracked like a whip. "Trolling, griefing, creating content." Each word struck with precision. "This isn't your virtual playground. These grounds have seen centuries of service, sacrifice, and respect, concepts that apparently need a more hands-on explanation." The two soldiers watching nodded grimly as the guard continued his lesson. "Every morning, I polish these boots you littered with your food. Every button you mocked is cleaned with the dedication of someone who understands duty. Every movement you tried to ridicule is practiced until it's perfect, because perfection honours those who came before us." Tyler's knees had begun to shake. A small wet patch appeared on his expensive gaming pants, fear finally overwhelming his bladder control. "Your mother tried to stop you," the guard noted, his voice carrying disappointment heavier than any gaming defeat Tyler had ever faced. The crowd showed discomfort. Even children younger than you recognized the wrongness of your actions. But you? The grip tightened fractionally. You chose to escalate, to push, to test limits you weren't prepared to find. Tears had begun rolling down Tyler's cheeks, cutting tracks through the grease left by his earlier meal. His gaming headphones slipped from his neck, clattering to the ground with a finality that seemed to emphasize his disconnection from his virtual comfort zone. "So here's your reality check." The guard's voice somehow became even more authoritative. "The real world has consequences. Not lag, not glitches, not server disconnects. Actual consequences that you carry with you." He leaned closer, each word distinct and burning with truth. "That finger you so proudly displayed, it marks you as someone who never learned the difference between online courage and real respect." Tyler's legs had begun to buckle, but the guard's grip kept him upright, forced to face this moment of reckoning. "Remember this feeling," the guard commanded. "Remember what real authority feels like. Remember that some things in life can't be reset, can't be edited, can't be laughed off with emotes and memes." His voice lowered to a near whisper that somehow carried more weight than his earlier words. "Remember that respect isn't earned through subscribers or likes, but through character, something you desperately need to develop." With one final adjustment of his grip, the guard delivered his closing statement. "Let this be the tutorial level for your real-life education." The lesson? He released Tyler's finger with the same precision he'd grabbed it. "Actions have consequences, and not all of them come with a save point." Tyler stumbled backward, his finger tingling with phantom pressure, his entire worldview shaken to its core. The crowd parted around him like he was contaminated, creating a circle of judgment he couldn't escape with a simple rage quit. His legs, unused to real-world confrontation, gave way beneath him. He landed hard on the courtyard stones, the impact sending shockwaves through his cushioned frame. The wet patch on his pants had grown visible, drawing whispers and pointed fingers from younger children, the very audience he tried so hard to impress now, witnessing his humiliation. I want to go home," he sobbed, all pretense of being an elite gamer abandoned. His hands trembled as he reached for his fallen headphones, but they seemed heavier now, the weight of reality crushing his digital armor. The guard had already resumed his post, his posture perfect once more, but somehow different. The same stillness that Tyler had mocked now radiated power that made the boy flinch every time his eyes accidentally met the polished brass buttons. His mother rushed forward, but even her approach was different, no longer apologetic but carrying the stern determination of a parent who'd just witnessed a necessary lesson. "Get up, Tyler," she commanded, her voice matching the guard's authority in its own way. "Get up and apologize properly." "But Mom," Tyler's whine died in his throat as he caught the guard's reflection in a nearby window. Even indirect eye contact was too much for his shattered confidence. "Now, Tyler!" Rising on shaky legs, his designer sneakers scuffing awkwardly against the stone, Tyler faced the guard. His voice, when it came, had lost all its affected streamer tones, reduced to its natural prepubescent squeak. I'm sorry, sir." The guard didn't respond, didn't need to. His silence now carried more weight than any of Tyler's earlier provocations. Nearby, a father whispered to his young son, "And that, lad, is why we respect the guards." The boy nodded solemnly, a lesson learned through observation rather than experience. As Tyler's mother led him away, his steps uneven and head bowed, the two soldiers who'd witnessed everything exchanged knowing looks. They'd seen this before. the moment when virtual bravado met real-world discipline, when digital consequences were replaced by genuine life lessons. Tyler's gaming headphones dangled limply from his fingers, no longer a crown, but a reminder of the divide between his online kingdom and the real world. Each step away from the guard felt like logging out of the most intense game he'd ever played, except this time the loss would stay with him, saved permanently in his memory. Behind him, the guard stood unchanging, eternal, a living monument to the values Tyler had failed to comprehend. Sometimes the hardest lessons come not from screens or simulated battles, but from moments when reality breaks through our carefully constructed illusions. For Tyler, that lesson came in the form of a white-gloved grip, and words that cut deeper than any online insult ever could. As the guard continues his watch, unchanged by the afternoon's events, yet having changed something profound in those who witnessed them, we're reminded that respect isn't taught through gentle suggestions or online tutorials. Sometimes it requires a firm hand and an unwavering commitment to values that have stood the test of time. The Royal Guards stand as living symbols of discipline, duty, and dedication. Qualities that can't be downloaded, can't be purchased with V-Bucks, and certainly can't be mocked into irrelevance. Their silence isn't weakness, their stillness isn't submission, and their patience isn't unlimited. For every Tyler out there, testing boundaries they don't understand, the guards remain steadfast, ready to teach lessons that no gaming stream could ever convey. In an age where respect often seems as virtual as our online achievements, they remind us that some things, duty, honor, tradition, remain solidly, unshakably real. What would you have done in the guard's position? How do we teach the next generation the difference between online bravado and real-world respect? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And hey, if you've come this far, why not give us a like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon too? Remember, true authority doesn't need constant movement to prove its power. Sometimes it stands silent, patient, ready to serve as a reminder that in the real world, actions have consequences that no Ctrl plus Z can undo. Stay disciplined, stay respectful, and we'll see you in the next story.